Tu peux aller.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here in Milano speaking to you tonight. Let me introduce myself. I'm Etienne Roudeix. I'm the product manager of Auctionity. Tonight I'm going to shortly introduce to you what Auctionity is, and then I'll talk to you about all the problems we faced and what was the solutions we found concerning the scaling of the Ethereum blockchain. Auctionity is a product of the Domraider company. Domraider was founded in 2013, and its main activity is selling domain names into auction. Since 2013, we sold over 15,000 domain names, and so we started thinking, how can we use this experience to create a global auction ecosystem? And in 2017, we figured out that blockchain could help. So we started by thinking, what does people involved in auction expect? Well, what does the seller expect when he wants to sell a good into auction? What does the bidder expect when he wants to buy something? And we determined 4 main expectations. The first is the cost. When someone wants to bid on an auction, he don't want to pay for it. When a seller wants to sell something, he don't want to pay for it. I mean that if you are the seller, you don't want to pay, and you don't want a commission at the end of the auction. You don't want someone to take a commission at the end of the auction. And if you're a bidder, maybe you are going to bid several times on an auction. Maybe you are going to win it, maybe you are not. But anyway, you don't want to pay some extra fee but the price of the product. The second expectation is the speed. When you place a bid, when you bid on an auction, you want your bid to be taken into account immediately. You don't want that someone who bids exactly the same amount than you can win the bid if you place exactly the same amount but after you. When an auction ends at 1 p.m., you don't want the auction to end at 1 p.m. and 12 minutes. You'd really want, you really need some fast behavior into your auction ecosystem. And the 2 other expectations are delivery and payment guarantees. And this means that as a seller, you want to be sure to be paid at the end of the auction. And as a bidder, as the winner of an auction, you want to be sure to get your good at the end of the auction. And concerning those 2 last points, we figured out that the Ethereum blockchain can help. Why? Because on the Ethereum blockchain, you have the Ether, which is money. And you have the smart contract system, and on that you can have a logical code who guarantees the seller that if a bidder paid, he will get the money at the end of the auction. And on the other hand, on the Ethereum blockchain, you have all the non-fungible tokens, which are, for example, ERC-721, maybe CryptoKitties, this kind of goods. And these tokens are meant to represent something in the blockchain, something unique in the blockchain. So we decide that somehow with this, we can guarantee delivery at the end of the auction. And basically, Auctionity today, it's a decentralized application running on the Ethereum blockchain to sell some non-fungible token in Ether. So I told you that the blockchain Ethereum helps with the payment and delivery guarantees, but concerning the freeness and the speed, it's not the same deal. Because on the Ethereum blockchain, each transaction costs gas. It means that, I don't know, if I want to bid on an auction, for example, which stands place into the Ethereum blockchain, I have to pay some gas into this transaction. And imagine an auction where there are something like 100 bidders, each bidder bids 3 times. It means 300 transactions which cost gas, meaning that on this 300 transaction, only one win at the end. So that's 299 transactions which were useless actually at the end of the auction, but the bidders had to pay. And that wasn't acceptable for an auction ecosystem. And the second property, the speed. Well, Ethereum, it's one block every 14 seconds, meaning that, I don't know, if my auction ends at 1 p.m., maybe it will end at 1 p.m. in 10 seconds. That's not fair. And in the same matter of problem, if I bid at 1 p.m., maybe someone who bid 10 seconds later will get the bid instead of me, because it will depend on the order it will be played in the block. So that's not acceptable to run the auction fully into the Ethereum blockchain. So we face this question: how to scale? How can we use this Ethereum blockchain but make it faster and cheaper? And we decided to use a sidechain. What is a sidechain? It's globally another Ethereum blockchain that we run on besides the main network of Ethereum, and that we can custom. So we made it faster. We said, okay, it's one block every second on this chain, and when we configured the gas cost of each transaction, we said, okay, it's free, 0. No need to pay to put a transaction on this sidechain. So we had this architecture at one point. In the left, you can see the Ethereum blockchain, which is slow and expensive. And on the right, we created the Auctionity network, which is fast and free. Auctionity network is an Ethereum blockchain running the proof of authority on Geth. The protocol behind this is Clicky on the Geth nodes. And so using that, you determine a given number of nodes which are allowed to mine some transaction on the blockchain. So we put all the miners into Europe, for example, and so we can have a faster consensus. And at this point, the problem was, okay, we have these two blockchains, but they can't communicate between each other, because each blockchain is meant to be replayable, and so it can't depend of an external core. So in 2014, Buterin, who founded Ethereum, introduced the concept of oracle. What is an oracle? It's something out of the chain who is meant to set an information in a blockchain which came from the outside. Something which happened outside of a chain, it will be written in this chain. So, if you understood what I mean, it's that this oracle, with the less responsibilities it has, the better it is, because it's not decentralized, it's not on chain. So we created a simple oracle just to say, okay, what happened on the Ethereum linenet will be replicated, will be mirrored on our Auctionity network, on our sidechain. And for example, we define some smart contracts on our architecture. We had this deposit smart contract on the Ethereum LiveNet. This deposit is just meant to receive all the Ether and all the non-fungible tokens that the seller and the bidders will deposit. And the oracle is just going to mirror whatever happened on this deposit on its own deposit on the Auctionity network. You can see on this slide all the auction smart contract, because for each auction that will take place into our network, we'll create a dedicated smart contract. We can do it easily because I remember to you, this is fast and free. Okay, for example, the seller deposits some non-fungible tokens and the bidder deposits some Ether on the main network, on this deposit smart contract. So this costs money at this point. That's necessary because Ether and non-fungible tokens only exists on this network. And the oracle is just going to mirror it on the Auctionity network. The deposit on the Auctionity network will just be aware that the seller owns the NFT. That bidder 1, for example, owns 1 Ether, and then bidder 2 owns 0.5 Ether, etc. And what's next? The seller can create an auction because we know it owns the NFT, and the bidders will be able to bid. The seller will create the auction, which is a new smart contract, he can determine all the parameters he wants for this auction. For example, he can get the start date, he can get the end date, he can get the starting price, he can get the step, he can get all the parameters he needs for the auction, and then the bidder will bid. And on this network, the bidder can bid at will. I mean, as far as the bidder does not exceed its deposit, he can bid as much time as he wants on the auction, on any auction, until it will be fast and free. And that's the global idea behind the sidechain of the Ethereum of the Auctionity project. Excuse me. You have to do the action. You have to deposit your good onto the deposit smart contract on the main network, and then all the other actions will take place into the sidechain and will be free and fast. So at one point, the auction is going to end. When the auction ends, our deposits on the sidechain will be aware that now it's the seller who owns the Ether, and it's, for example, bidder 2 who won and owns the non-fungible token. So what do you expect now? You expect that the oracle gets information and mirror it on the deposit. But that's what we thought first. But that was a major problem, because in this configuration, the oracle has to write on the main network, which is expensive, which means that this single oracle, this single person, would have to pay for all the auction who took place in the sidechain. And that was not what we expected. So we found a workaround, and instead of writing directly on the mainnet, the oracle is just going to sign a voucher which will contain anything what happened. It will be something like a certificate that the auction actually happened like it happened, and that the Ether and that the non-fungible token can be traded at the end on the official main network. This voucher, which actually is public because it contains all the security guarantees, can be cashed into the livenet by anyone. For example, the seller is going to cash the voucher in, and when the voucher is cashed in one single transaction, it will unlock the Ether for the seller, and it will unlock the non-fungible token for the winner. And that's how you split all the costs that the oracle should have assumed into many people. All the sellers have to pay a small fee to get their Ether. They just pay the gas at the end, which means in the global auction, only the seller had to pay a few gas to cash the voucher in at the end. And no, I know what's your main question, talking about the sidechain, things that we're going on a proof of authority sidechain. It's why I cannot steal your Ether. That's taking place into two parts of the infrastructure. The first is the deposit itself. I mean the deposit on the Ethereum main network. The code is public. You can browse it, for example, on Etherscan. You can access it. You can have it's public, I mean. And since it was written in the blockchain once, you have the guarantee that it will never change. And that's what is DApp actually. So I guess I'm not learning to you anything here. What does the deposit guarantees? It guarantees that there is no way to get Ether without a valid voucher, which means that there is no trade function, for example, where someone can say, okay, transfer the Ether to this person, transfer this Ether to this other person. No, it's not like this work. There is no other way than using a valid voucher. Second guarantee is that the Ether, whatever the voucher, can only be transferred to a seller if the winner signed a bid. For example, it's impossible to have a voucher without your signature as a winner to transfer your Ether. So as far as you don't sign anything with your private key, which is private, you are sure that you can't lose your money. And the third guarantee is that the Ether can be spent by yourself, by the bidder, the one who deposits the money. So if I deposit something like 1 Ether, there is no way I withdraw more than 1 Ether. Or there is no way that I spent more than 1 Ether on an auction. And this guarantee is simply one part of the problem, because I talked to you about a valid voucher, and this is the second part of the security guarantees. The integrity is guaranteed by the voucher, because the voucher must contain 3 key points. The first is the signed bid. So if the bidder if the voucher did not contain the signed bid into its content, it could not be applied, because you have no proof that the bidder approved the transfer of its money. And the other side of this is that it must contain the signed auction transaction. Remember this transaction when the seller created a smart contract. He signed that is ready to sell this contract. He signed it with private key. He decided all the parameters, he decided of the token to be in sale. So if there is no signed transaction, the transfer, the voucher will not be valid. And the last point is that it must be signed by the oracle, because the oracle with this signature is just the mirroring proof. The oracle is just saying, okay, this actually happened on the sidechain, and that's all the responsibility of this oracle signature. So if you miss one of these 3 signatures, your voucher is not valid. So as a winner, if you never signed a bid on the given NFT, your money is safe. As a seller, if you never sign the auction creation with your private key, your token is safe. And as the sidechain, as the user of sidechain, if the oracle does not validate this with its signature, you are sure that it's not a forged forged voucher by some malicious bidders and seller. And that's how we guarantee to you that we can't steal your Ether. Oh, nice. Okay, almost the end. That was a short overview of the Auctionity protocol, because I just focused on the point of the auction. There are many other security guarantees, and maybe you can browse our website and you will get more information. The final point is that we got a perfect yellow paper you can find on our website who demonstrated all the security properties. And thank you for listening to me. And if you have any question, feel free to ask in English, in Français, or maybe in Italian if someone can translate.